In the year of 1893, Chicago had been given the privilege to host the world's Columbian Exposition, also known as the Chicago World's Fair, celebrating 400 years since Columbus's discovery of America. The World's Columbian Exposition was a triumph because it was the start of a new architectural era with its many new attractions and inventions. It held nearly 27 million people in the 6 months it was open. The infamous serial killer, Herman Mudgett, best known as H.H. Holmes, used the fair to lure citizens to his World's Fair hotel, commonly referred to as his murder castle. His hotel included dead ends, secret passageways, and even death traps. H.H. Holmes shaped Chicago's law enforcement to be more precautious that made the citizens feel safer. He is known as America's very first serial killer.
World fairs take place all around the globe, celebrating the greatest accomplishments of mankind. The first World Fair was hosted by London in 1851. Many influential fairs came after that, celebrating the industry, achievements, and growth of different nations. On April 25, 1890, the Congress of the United States decided to plan an exposition celebrating the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America. Many cities were in the running, some including New York City, Washington, D.C., and many more. What sold Congress on choosing Chicago was how much money they were willing to invest, which knocked the other cities out of the running. Meanwhile, the serial killer, Herman Mudgett, under the alias Henry Howard Holmes, was focused on building his World's Fair Hotel, also known as his murder castle. He was planning on using this fair as a way to attract visitors to staying in his hotel. As a child, Herman always had dark thoughts about the concept of death. As he said,
"I was born with the devil in me."
At a young age, he also showed a great amount of knowledge and was also very interested in medicine and anatomy. He attended medical school at the University of Michigan. He also dabbled in insurance fraud by filing false insurance claims from the corpses that he stole from the university.
To start the building process of the fair, they cleared nearly 700 acres out of Jackson Park, which is located on the southeast side of Chicago. The chief architect, Daniel Burnham, was a leader for the build and planning of the fair. It took 6 months to construct all the buildings. There were 14 main buildings which centered around a reflective pool, dubbed the Great Basin. 40,000 workers constructed the buildings. It included the first Ferris wheel, designed by George Ferris, which measured at 264 feet tall. In total, the whole fair costed around $26 million. A big part of the finances listed in the financial ledger went to the lights featured at the fair, because electricity was a new discovery. When Holmes first moved to Chicago in 1886, he got a job as a pharmacist on 63rd Street. In 1887, Holmes bought the empty property across the street to build his murder hotel. H.H. Holmes hired many different workers and businesses so they didn't get suspicious of his plan. It was a 3-story building with small shops on the first level, and above that, places to stay. Most rooms on the 3rd floor had a chute to the basement. It was a dark place with different tools and contraptions. The 2nd floor was a labyrinth of confusion and deceit with many horrible rooms and confusing turns. He would put people there after they settled in the room on the 3rd floor.
When the World's Columbian Exposition opened on May 1, 1893, it was the start of the fair's triumphant success. The fair is nicknamed the White City because of its architectural design and extravagant white buildings. The ticket cost was 50 cents for adults and 25 cents for children. Some of the many inventions on display include juicy fruit gum, the zipper, spray paint, a dishwasher, electricity, and much more. 25% of the population in the U.S. at that time attended the fair. The astonishing structures and buildings led it to one of the most profitable fairs up until that time. 50 nations and 26 colonies participated in the fair, all hoping to experience the breathtaking wonders of it all. Although profitable in the end, the fair hit a hardship before the first Ferris wheel was installed. The setback came when he started building the Ferris wheel only 4 months before the fair was supposed to be open. On June 21st, the Ferris wheel started up, which threw the fair into profit because it was such a big hit. The fair had 7 distinct parts: the basin and the canal, the wooded island, the government location where the United States and other foreign pavilions were built, Federal State location with the Fine Arts Building, the Midway, outdoor agriculture exhibits, and dairy and anthropological buildings.
As the fair brought more and more people into Chicago, more people came to Holmes's hotel. Holmes typically invited young women to his castle, putting out ads for his hotel and offers to marry him. He was even engaged to 3 women at once, deceiving them all to think that they were the only ones. Holmes used his wit and charm to attract visitors from out of town into staying there. Usually, they were never seen again. People were drawn to his hotel because of employment, though most of them ended up missing. One of H.H. Holmes's best-known schemes was with an associate named Benjamin Petezel. They were going to fake Petezel's death and split his $10,000 insurance claim. Instead of faking his death and sharing the money, he actually killed Petezel and 3 of his children. This is why Holmes was brought into court and eventually executed. He confessed to murdering 27 other people. The police were only able to prove 9 of them. The disappearance of Nanny and Minnie Williams were suspected to be a murder of Holmes. They were supposedly killed during the World's Columbian Exposition. The police found Minnie's watch in an oven as well as Nanny's garter buckle.
The World's Columbian Exposition was a triumph for Chicago. It had a large impact for all the people that had attended it, and for the city itself. The fair helped Chicago build back its reputation from the Chicago fire that took place only 22 years prior. The fair led the country into the 20th century and predicted the modern growth of technology and electricity. Many think that the world wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for the fair. Millions saw the technological advances and modern art, which reinforced their belief in America's future. The Chicago World's Fair inspired many creators, the Emerald City from Wizard of Oz and Epcot in Walt Disney World. The New York Times best-selling book, The Devil in the White City, was a huge outcome from the fair. The flag of Chicago has a star dedicated to the fair. People still believe that the World's Columbian Exposition is one of the most revolutionary fairs of all time.
H.H. Holmes's killing spree was a huge tragedy for the citizens of Chicago and of America. It had people more concerned and aware of their safety. Once the news got out of his arrest, trial, and execution, the public was very thankful to have him out of the streets. After he was executed, people felt safer and there was a sense of relief. This also taught people to be less trusting around strangers and the places that they stay in. He made the law enforcement in Chicago noteworthy. Because of him, the message was spread to let your loved ones know where you were headed and when. These little changes amounted in a decrease of crime in Chicago. H.H. Holmes is thought to be America's first serial killer and one of the most gruesome. He is still remembered today for his many murders and frauds. There are many documentaries, TV shows, and books about him, the most popular being American Ripper, a story about how H.H. Holmes could have also been Jack the Ripper. Holmes showed other criminals in later years, such as Al Capone, that Chicago could be used and bended for crime.
The World's Columbian Exposition was a great accomplishment for Chicago and will always be remembered for its breathtaking architecture and inventions. H.H. Holmes used the fair as his plan to lure more victims to his hotel. It shows how someone can take something as majestic and triumphant as the fair and turn it into a great tragedy for all. It shows people the importance of how you need to be cautious and careful when dealing with strangers. It is a huge learning point and the first national advertised time that people really educated others on not talking to people that you don't know or trust.